how do you actually make it work? So there's a lot of questions that we could have on that. So I'm going to try and give you options of one that you might choose either way. So how did your current business come into being? And really the question is, when you had your initial idea, is that actually what is happening right now with your business? So, and I know on the whole, it tends to morph and move around. So just talking about that process. And then the other question is, have you ever had a business idea that you just went, you know, I should just dream about that one and should never start it? So as part of this conversation, we like to have both the really, really good ideas or the good stories of how things went along, and then also the, you know, we really don't want to go there. That's just a dream. That should stay a dream. So would anybody like to jump in? And I must admit, I kind of like the back and forth. So as long as we don't have a lot of feedback, I'd be happy if you could leave your mics on.
Sure. Well, I'm happy to start with that. I would say, you know, this kind of concept of ideation and taking an idea to business, I would say I probably have about 20 business ideas a day. 19 to 20 of them are probably really bad ideas. You know, my personal feeling and experience is that, you know, the true sort of intent of any entrepreneur is really experimentation. And so you got to really just be in the business of piloting and testing and framing experiments and framing them really well. And so, you know, I think of most of early business generation is, you know, defining in a really healthy way, what is it you're trying to learn and how can you most effectively, you know, kind of structure an experiment to learn? What are the variables you need to play with? And really, how can you test your idea in the most inexpensive and really the quickest way, in a way that's going to give you the maximum amount of feedback? And so I'll just use Create Common Good as one example, but you know, we always have been about training and feeding. That hasn't changed. So our sort of core pillars have fundamentally been, you know, the same from day one. However, we've iterated 4,000 times to the point that most people would not have recognized who we were at the beginning compared to who we are now. And so, you know, I think it took us quite a while, you know, various forms of sort of feeding revenue to really figure out what our kind of niche was in terms of production food. Our training program has remained consistent and the basis of kind of who we are and what we do. But I do think most effective businesses, I'd say upwards of 95%, are not what they set out to be in the exact same form. So I think it's totally healthy, normal, and natural for that iterative kind of experimental process. And I think a really healthy business is always experimenting, truthfully.
Cherie, did you ever, I'm really curious because I just love your story so much. Did you ever feel or like have a moment along your journey with Create Common Good that you were like, this is it, this is the idea, like this is the one, and then it like totally bombed? Because I've had 100 of those, 1,000.
You know, it's interesting because, you know, we had a small farm, we sold food, you know, packaged food products, we did, you know, large events and catering. I don't know if I ever believed like this was the rocket fire idea, but boy, we believed it enough to sure put money, time, and energy into it, and really to prove to ourselves that it wasn't the most effective way and the most sustainable way. And so, you know, it took us about 5 years, and we've only existed for 12 years, but it took us about 5 to 6 years to really get into the production food element that we're in now and have kind of remained in the, you know, the second half of our existence. And so, but I would say we're still iterating to some extent. You know, our next big move will be doing production feeding for large scale office buildings and having our trainees in a live environment. So we're not just doing B2B food sales, but we're doing it sort of with an end consumer right there with them. So, you know, endlessly evolving, I guess, perhaps.
Way to go. Jesse, you opened up with that great, you know, this is the most excellent idea, and then it wasn't. Are you willing to share one of those?
Sure. It certainly made me feel better hearing Tara say we put money towards it. And then when you know, I think that it's true when you put your money where your mouth is, it kind of takes that idea. It's like the whole next level, right? And I think that one of the things that so many entrepreneurs start out with and they think about is, what the idea is, and then they don't necessarily think about like, how am I going to fund the idea, which isn't a bad thing. You know, I think that when you put constraints on your imagination and when you put constraints on your creativity, you're limiting the possibilities. And so I guess that would be one of the biggest pieces of advice I would have for anyone who's a budding entrepreneur. Like, it doesn't matter how big your idea is, come up with the idea and then start thinking about the viability and how you're going to execute on it, because that's where the real magic and the real creativity happens. We have gone around 1,000 times with what should we do, where should we go, you know, and I really am a firm believer in strategic planning and deciding what you're going to do for the year or for the period of time that you're defining, but also being really nimble with that strategic plan and being able to say, throw that out the window, it didn't work, or let's be agile and let's, you know, figure out a different way to think of a different idea. So I can give you an example. We were investing, this was probably like the very first, it was one of our very first big product launches. We invested so much money in the liquid lipstick category, right? So, you know, we spent a lot of money there. And now when I look at things and I look at COVID, right, above the mask makeup is really trending, right? Like nobody's buying liquid lipstick. And you have to be able to look at that and say, you know what, it was a good idea. It was a product that we thought was really going to work, but sometimes there are these external factors that make it so the idea that you had isn't necessarily the right idea. So something that's sort of small on that scale to something that's even bigger, you know. I don't know how many of you have read the book Big Magic, but it really spoke to me all about ideas, and you should definitely check it out. But it speaks to the power of ideas and how not every idea is yours to own or yours for life, and how you can give up ideas, and how those ideas can sort of like float into the universe and be taken by someone else, which I thought was just really lovely. But we've had ideas for different brands, for different offshoots, for different products. And at the end of the day, I think that part of being an entrepreneur, as I said previously, is you have to be able to dream big, but you also have to be able to know when to say no, you know?
That's the fun part, isn't it? And being willing or able to try and then go. No, Cherie.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll piggyback off with the willing to say no. I was thinking, my husband and I have always been partners in all of our entrepreneurial ventures. So we've done e-commerce, we've done real estate. We did one business with a bad business idea. We did video lessons of a martial art we did together called capoeira. Really fun martial art that involves, it's where breakdancing came from. So it involves like dance and music. It's Brazilian. Anyway, that we had to pivot really quickly because we got the website up, we put in our investment, and it was not, 3 months into it, we realized it just was not going to bring in the revenues that we needed. And so we had to let it go quickly. And, sometimes you're investing and you just have to eat the costs and move to the next idea. I would venture to think that we have over 100 LLCs and different domain names for ideas. So just like you all, wow. A lot of ideas. But what it does is it develops a mindset where you're constantly looking for opportunity. And that's what got us into this business, reusable menstrual care. And specifically, our first product was a menstrual cup. I was talking to my aunt in Venezuela who just described the scenario where she couldn't get anything on grocery store shelves, like diapers for children or food or personal hygiene items, let alone things like pads and tampons. And that got me thinking into, okay, well, what would I do? I have 5 daughters. What would I do for my 5 daughters if I didn't have access to these disposable items? And that got me researching into sustainable solutions. And I was introduced to the menstrual cup. And this was 7 years ago. It's more well known now. Hopefully we added to being able to proliferate that knowledge a little bit. But I'd never seen it before. I said, what is this? This was invented in the 1930s. I've never seen this before. And what I saw, a lot of people, might get scared away by that. Well, this is an FDA, regulated medical device, which means you need to have FDA approval or regulation and comply with those standards to be able to get into that business. There's a lot of cups on the market, from China, not too many from the US. So we, looked at where the opportunity lies. And there's also a lot of stigma around period care. And even more stigma around reusable period care. At the time, it was kind of like, oh, reusables, those are for hippies, And as an entrepreneur, you can look at that and you say, okay, this is a challenge or this is an opportunity. And so we saw an opportunity to take that stigma, to flip it on its head, to create this really high-end package that opened up like a high-end lipstick. You know, there's this trend for clean and sustainable beauty care and personal care, and we just wanted that to extend to period care. So when you're talking about a mindset, you're looking for a problem that you can solve. You can look for opportunities in the market and opportunities to just change the story. Our cup design, what we developed, was not that different from other cups. Obviously, there was intricacies and there's subtle differences that have made a lot of difference for people. But in reality, it's really our brand and our brand story that makes the difference. It's how we tell the story. And what we saw was this big gap in the market where you either had really traditional feminine hygiene items, you know, the flowers, the pastels, and the butterflies, you know, people twirling in white pants, or you had kind of this extreme where it was like blood and body parts, stuff you maybe didn't want your young girls to be seeing. And we said, no one's really talking to that mainstream consumer, just about, you know, the sustainability of the cup and the benefits just for your health, for your body, for the environment. Let's just take that on and let's talk to the mainstream consumer. And we wanted our packaging to be target worthy. We aimed for that, and we were very deliberate about creating our brand. So there's mistakes, and then you can have, I would say with this business, we were very deliberate about it, and it ended up being exactly what we thought it would be. And it's been that way all the case. That's not all the time. Sometimes you're pivoting a lot, and sometimes it's just exactly what your gut is.
Wow. I think even having one of those examples, though I must admit, I'm going to hear that you've got, you know, 100 LLCs out there and website domains. It's like, that's a true entrepreneur. I've just, in my background,
They're not all active. I'm just saying, in our history, it's definitely over 100.
Wow. I think in my background, and I've maybe 5, maybe 4. So here's the next question, I think. What was the hardest part of transforming your idea into a business? And I'm just going for that. You've each pointed out different aspects, which is awesome. But what was that hardest step? And maybe it's the, oh, I don't want to do this, or I'm not sure if I want to try it, or what do you think?
I think oh, go ahead, Tara.
No, I'll share after you share.
I think for me, the hardest step was actually just getting started and just saying yes and setting up. I think for me, getting through the hurdle after hurdle that you look at and you say, I have to get a sales tax ID number. I have to get, you know, my business ID number. I have to get all of these things. And there's not really this like clear cut. I always felt like at the next step, there was something else I had to get. Yes. The idea, it wasn't hard to implement or execute. Like the idea, I would say, if you have an idea that keeps you up at night, if you have an idea that just like sets your world on fire, right? And it's this idea that you just can't give up, nothing's going to stop you from getting to that idea. But I think for so many entrepreneurs, it can be really hard to get out of the idea space and into the weeds. Yes. And be like, what is the next thing that I have to do to get this going? And I don't do very well in the weeds. And I'm really fortunate that I have partners that do very, very well in that space and can flex. But I think for me, being in the weeds is one of the hardest parts about having this idea, because you want to just have the idea and you just want to run with the idea, and you don't want to have to do all of the red tape and all of the things that go with it. And I've seen it in a lot of entrepreneur friends that I know. They just get stuck right there. So that was the hardest thing for me. But after that, things really started to connect.
Excellent. Thank you. Tara, did you want to go next?
Well, it's funny. I was going to say everything is hard about the entrepreneurial journey. I mean, the truth is we sort of have this crazy superhuman fire in our bellies when we have this burden to bring something to life. But the truth is it is all hard. And I think we've kind of like sensationalized entrepreneurship in our country and even sort of made it like celebrity status for certain, you know, tech startup entrepreneurs or whatever. And the truth is it's hard. It's not sexy. It's like tireless. It's every day. It's, you know, it's so much more than you ever imagined. But when you have this like thing you're pregnant with, which is kind of how I've felt about the journeys I've been on, there's really like not an option of not doing it. And so to me, some of the biggest challenges are actually like, one thing is putting it down, like being able to walk away and do other things in life. Like when you are on a quest, you know, for me and everything I've been fortunate to be a part of building and birthing, you know, it's such a consuming fire that you're wrestling with that it takes an enormous amount of discipline and energy to be really mindful about the spaces of when you're kind of allowing yourself to go at it. And for me as a parent, especially, and when you're not. And so really the discipline to walk away is one hard thing. The other thing I think that's really hard is just the ability to step away and zoom out enough that you can really gain strategic perspective when you're amidst the day-to-day operational just kind of monotony. And I think my biggest breakthroughs in every venture I've been a part of building have come when I've sort of stepped out enough, whether it's forcing myself to go out of town to a strategy retreat or something where it's just, I really had to almost step away to some level to really glean the insights I needed to get through the next kind of big hurdle.
Excellent. So both of you, Jesse and Tara, it's the weeds and the clouds and the weeds and the clouds, and then being able to walk off. That's my incredibly random paraphrasing.
Yeah.
Sure.
I thought it was great, actually. Yeah, you know, I found that entrepreneurs tend to come, you know, to us and they say, hey, we want advice. How do we go about creating a product, starting a business? And it always seems like they want like a clear-cut process. You start from here, you go to here, you go to here. And, you know, just like Tara and Jesse said, it's not anything glamorous. It is really just diving in and starting to Google and starting to write things down. And, you know, having been kind of a serial entrepreneur, I know what that startup grind looks like. So when we started Saalt and my husband and I decided to go ahead and you know, take on this crazy adventure, I knew that what that was going to look like for me. I come from a technical writing background. I've always done freelance technical writing. So that means I'm writing 11 pages of website copy, and I'm writing new instructions for a new product. And, you know, I'm writing marketing material. I'll say I've never written more. I've never written more for my previous work, which is writing college textbooks on fitness and wellness. So I co-authored 7 editions, but I've written far more for business, for sure.
Wow.
So it really is just a lot of hustle. It's a lot of grit. And I want to add that I think that there's smart ways to go about it to get to your minimum viable product, that experimentation. One thing we did that was really game changing for us when we started Saalt is we created a focus group on Facebook. I would go, you know, here locally and then to, you know, my sister's place in Utah, to different states. And I would hold these lunches where we would ask people to bring their laptops and say, hey, we'll buy lunch if you'll just join this focus group, invite your friends and family. We want to get to 1,000 members. And once we got to 1,000 members, and we'd kind of tell them what our product was and what we wanted to do as a brand. And the whole goal was to be able to get consumer feedback on our brand and our packaging and, you know, even our copy. We threw out all sorts of questions to this focus group, and we asked them so that we could get something that resonated. And if you have something that resonates with at least 1,000 people, then it can be a springboard for you. So when we launched that focus group, we gave them each a cup for them to open. They filmed their unboxing experience, they shared with their friends, and it became a launch platform for us. And it was really helpful because we thought, oh yeah, this is a surefire way to go. And they were like, no, it doesn't resonate with me. I like this voice. I like these colors or whatever. And so we were able to create, you know, exactly what our consumer wanted. So I'm just a big proponent of focus groups. It worked really, really well for us. It was just friends and family on a private Facebook group. We don't have it anymore, but it was a great launch platform.
I must say, so I'm an assistant professor here at Boise State. I came into academia late. I was in business for years. And I teach strategy. And I must admit, your language, it's so nice to hear that what we're teaching is actually working. Minimum viable product. We heard strategy. We heard testing hypotheses. I think I might be putting a couple words in your mouth there, Tara. But
it's the same principle.
Yeah, basically figuring out what you need to learn, how to test it as quickly and succinctly as possible to know whether you should go forward or whether you need to change it. So really, really nice to hear. So getting this idea into a business and So far, the lessons I've heard is, you know, just do it and hang in there. Have a team, because you need someone who has the skills that you don't, i.e. if you're a big thinker, you need the detail. I can hear from Tara, she sounds a little bit more detail oriented. I'm going to test everything, makes it works out. Jessie is just going to go forward, and hopefully other people are going to follow her behind. And thankfully, Cherie's going to write everything down, which I can't imagine how valuable that is on a new project team. What's the longest you've ever stuck with a business idea that you then, I should put, stuck a thumb on it, or nixed it, or what's the longest, and how painful was that? One of the things that I think as entrepreneurs, and we're talking about glorifying the experience, I'm going to put some context to the question, is we're like, oh, you've got to stick with it forever, and who knows, and people have spent years, and it's true, but there are also times when it's just like, no, we need to can this, and maybe we'll come back to it years later, but this should not live now. So I'm just wondering about those decisions, de-romanticizing the entrepreneurship experience, perhaps.
I actually think something that Cherie said is invaluable, which is, you know, I think no idea is a bad idea, personally. I think you should never kill an idea. One of the questions I noticed in the Q&A is like, when should you let go of an idea? I think you should never let go of an idea. And personally, I don't think any idea is a new idea. That's just my personal belief. I do think you have to be mindful of whether or not to execute on an idea, and how long and sort of how much time are you going to give it. So I think, you know, one of the things to potentially think about as you are building a hypothesis, thinking about your design challenge, is, you know, what's the amount of money or time, energy, various variables you're willing to put in before you come out with whatever intended outcomes you're looking for. And so, you know, I think that being brave enough to admit something isn't working is important. You know, for us at Create Common Good, like I mentioned, we've had various earned revenue models as it pertains to food businesses. And so we did have a small farm for a period of time. We did operate a supper club for a period of time. We did do high-end events for a period of time. And it was very obvious to me when we needed to kill those. And now I'm used to the fact that we've killed several things in the process of getting to life. And I think we got more swift with killing things, you know, further along in the process. And I think the key is something Jessie said, which is you have to be careful not to get emotionally attached to an idea, depending on whose idea or whatever. And there will always be people that are disappointed. We still get notes at times about how annoyed people are that we stopped certain things, but we're not here to please a community member. We're here to serve, you know, adults with barriers to employment and help them get on their feet. And so, and it kind of comes back to your mission and understanding your mission and ensuring you're staying true to that. But I think it's a sign of strength when you have kind of the insight and wisdom enough to know when to stop something.
Awesome, thank you. Jessie, Cherie?
Yeah, I'm still thinking about my answer. I'll go last.
Well, sure, I'll chime in. I was thinking about one that we didn't kill too early. I did tell you about one we did, you know, killed in 3 months, but another business we had is an e-commerce business where we imported goods from Brazil, and it's all surrounded the same martial art. It was like white pants and drums and all sorts of fun stuff, music. And we had that business running. It provided, you know, our income for us for several years. I would say about 4 years. Well, we still have it to this day. It's in our garage. We're trying to get rid of it. But this is an example of a long idea, right? It ran well for a while. Once that wasn't providing quite enough income for us, we shifted to real estate. I got my real estate license. We developed a website and started flipping homes. I think my husband did, you know, the primary work there, but he flipped about 150 homes here in the Valley. Real estate's fun, really fun. It did really well during the real estate downturn. Finding good deals is a good time. As things shifted, we started shifting and said, you know, this isn't, we want to develop a business. And that's where, when the idea for Saalt came up, we said, well, let's give this a go. And so you just, it's kind of an example of pivoting over, 15-year time frame. We had, one business I told you that, we ended up killing entirely, lost money on that one. This other one that's, kept going. And right now my kids are operating it, but we don't have enough bandwidth to keep it going. So but it is making money. We've decided to kill it because it's just not, really worth the time. And then really putting our efforts into another idea. So I think there's just opportunity costs and time also, and just knowing how much bandwidth you have when you are an entrepreneur and you have multiple things going. Sometimes that can be a real big blessing. For us, this side business kind of provided all of our Christmas and travel money. It was fine. It kind of ran itself. But at this point in life, we have such an opportunity with the business that we're running that, we decided to let that go. So it shifts over time, and some you decide to kill, some are great to have kind of on the side while you have a different idea. It's really just the life of the entrepreneur.
That's really interesting, that opportunity cost. I spoke with a gaming developer investor. So he just wanted to invest in internet games, and he wanted any management team of any firm that he'd invest in, he wanted them all to be like under 26 or 27. He wanted them to be young. And I thought one of the bonuses of doing that is, like, at my age, I have a very different cost benefit analysis to my time. When I was 27, there was no such thing. Time was just something that I had. Now it's like, oh no, I'd rather not spend the next 6 hours trying to get this color to be the right color. I would rather enjoy my life and take my dog for a walk. So it's interesting how at different stages of life, those equations are different. Okay, Jesse, you ready?
Well, yeah, I'll just piggyback off of what you said. I had a college professor many years ago say something that I didn't believe and is now incredibly profound to me. And he said, you only have 24 hours in a day. You probably have to sleep for 8 hours. You're at some point, if you're going to be, and this is specifically talking about entrepreneurship. And he said, if you're not independently wealthy, if you're not, don't have another stream of income, you're probably going to have to work for 8 hours a day. And what you choose to do with the other 8 hours in your day, that's up to you. And I thought to myself, whatever, that can't be right. And we started getting going on Red Aspen. I was 29 when we got going. I had a infant and a 2-year-old, and he was not only right, he was dead on, especially when you have to start carving out these areas of your time. And I think what it comes down to is you have to be strategic and you have to be intentional. And you also have to go into it knowing that there are going to be personal and professional sacrifices that you will make. And that's part of the game. And I think as we talk about glamorizing, the entrepreneurial spirit, I think that's great. But I also think that we have to be really realistic about the sacrifices that you make in that. And, I know that this is speaking to women. And so I would also say the stage that you are at in life right now, if you're an undergraduate or, a younger graduate student, the partner that you pick in life is also so valuable and so important. I learned very, very early on that, as a mother of 2 young children, I couldn't do every single thing around the house, right? And I needed to have a partner with me that was going to be there 50-50. If I'm being really honest with myself, like sometimes it's like, 30-70, 30 on his part, but he, you have to be okay with that. And you have to have a partner that is going to be supportive if you want to do all these other things in your life as well. You can't do all of it. You can't. And I don't care if it's at home, if it's in business, you have to have that support. You have to get gritty and you have to be willing to give up control and make sacrifices. And to answer your question, Red Aspen is the longest running idea that I've had. And, that's where I've been sticking. And for me, my journey is more, do we stay on the path that we're on and remain laser focused, or do we deviate from that and try some new things?
That would be such a hard question, because I tend to be analytical by nature. So it's like, well, let's go analyze this, and then let's go analyze that, and then let's check this out. So many options. Cherie, you mentioned your partner, husband as well, saying that you're involved. So I think that's a key part. We have a question from an attendee. With no partners, I have an idea for an app, but no partners, close friends that are experienced in app development. And I'm going to broaden this out a little bit. Got a business idea, but I don't have a network of friends that can help me get this idea off the ground. How do I go about finding those people, and how much do I have to protect the idea? And I apologize, attendee, for morphing your question, but I hope the answer will still work out well enough. So any comments on that? How do you find a group of people to work for, and do you need to protect your idea?
I think for me, you have to be really good at hiring, and you also, just to be blunt, you also have to be really good at firing. And that doesn't mean it has to be a person, right? It doesn't have to be an employee, but if something's not working, I've learned this lesson so many times. The first round of website that we went developing, it was just a simple Squarespace website, and it took the person months and months and months and months and months, and things were not getting done. And then we just switched to somebody else, and voila, it's done. And so while I can't necessarily tell you, here's the playbook and here's where you go find this app developer and here's what it's going to look like, I can tell you, be willing to try. And if things aren't working, you need to be very clear. No one is going to advocate for you but yourself. Don't make concessions in what you are looking for unless those concessions are strategic and well thought out. And at the end of the day, if the relationship is not working, again, you are the only one that's going to advocate for your idea. So you need to be very clear about your expectations and be willing to move away if the partners aren't the right partners.
So, and I realize you two need to ask a question. Just want to make the distinction between employees and partners, because that's a little bit, I would assume, more challenging, because employees are much easier to say goodbye to than partners.
I guess when I meant partners, I meant like consultants and
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah. Not actual joining.
No, not like physical part. Like those are also very important, the people you go into business with. I mean more, you know, like for us, we didn't have a giant staff when we started. We still try to run as lean as we possibly can. But, you know, if you've got an app developer, for example, and they're doing a great job, run with them. But if they're not, find someone else.
Go, move on.
Yeah, I can piggyback off of Jesse. You do tend to use a lot of third-party partners when you start a business. You don't have the funds to be able to hire an employee. And so, you know, for all of our business, we've always turned to those same third-party partners that have been great. It's hard to find, especially when it comes to web developers. They're sometimes difficult to find ones that, you know, will deliver in the way that you're looking to. So, but yeah, I would say that, you know, make sure to find really good third-party partners. Also turn to the entrepreneur community. We have a great Boise community, and, you know, I'm certainly this way, but I am willing to talk to any entrepreneur anytime. You know, I know that time is limited oftentimes when we're running a company, but I have found that most entrepreneurs are just excited to be able to share and be able to buoy up other entrepreneurs. So, you know, try to reach out, go to the networking events, because they can help you point to resources. Maybe there's others that have ideas. And then when it comes to partners are really important. We've had several different partners in the businesses. Even in Saalt right now, you know, we had two co-founders that we're currently purchasing out. So it happens where, you know, you end up splitting ways because entrepreneurs go different ways. They have different ideas. In our real estate business, we started with a partner, and then we continued on, and they went to a different venture, and, you know, it's all okay. I think it's actually pretty common. But I would say if you decide to take on a partner, for the business, just make sure that you have everything very clear in writing. That's super important. You just think, oh, we'll just get going, but people's expectations are different. And so it's something you just learn early on. You make the mistake once, and then you correct it as you go. But, you know, make sure that everything is down and people are covered, like the good fences, you know, make good neighbors and partners. So it's
always easier to have those conversations when everything's great. That's what I'll say too. Whether it's your partner in business or a third-party vendor, like, it's way easier to have that conversation when everything is good rather than when everything is going down. So, you know, and be willing to have uncomfortable conversations too. I mean, like when we put together our partnership agreement with, you know, my two other partners, for example, it was not comfortable. not at all, you know, talking about, well, what if so-and-so dies, or who is this part? And it is really uncomfortable, but it's so important because now we're all on the same page, right? And you have to do that with your vendors, with your, you know, I'm sorry to jump in, but you were just speaking to me. So.
Yep. Ditto. Agree. Totally.
Well, and I think, you know, back to your sort of question around somebody with an idea, whether it's for an app or for a business. I mean, I actually think the first step, you know, is a whole bunch of research. And I think the research comes in a lot of forms. To what Cherie was saying, one way you research is you get out and talk to people, no question. But there's a ton you can look at and explore online now. Like I said, I have, you know, 20 business ideas a day, but 19 or 20 are bad or not worth pursuing because one, somebody's either doing it really effectively or a bunch of people are doing it or whatever other reason. But I think that the first step is to really put some time and energy into digging up what you can about the market, about that kind of space. I mean, there's so much learning involved in building and creating anything. And it's just really a journey and endlessly learning. So my suggestion would be like research. And then, you know, if it's an app specifically, you know, there are great groups on campus. I forget what it's called, but I think it's GimWorks. There's a software development group at BSU that is amazing, and it's all student-based app development. And I didn't know about this group until a year-ish ago, and I thought, wow, what an amazing resource. Just like Cherie said, you know, there's Trailhead, there's the Venture College at BSU, there are, you know, Startup Week. There's so many things in town that bring together people that share kind of a passion for business and a passion for startups. And so those environments would be amazing places to take your idea or to go really just kind of bounce stuff off the wall. And then, you know, again, I think, you know, the idea is important, but what's even more important is the experiment and like really how do you define your design challenge or your hypotheses and what you're really trying to test and learn. You know, what is the kind of realm of the product or service or you know, how you want to bring it to life. So I love the business model canvas. I think that's a great tool for any business idea to really just kind of play with some of the aspects and dimensions you really need to define. So that might be a resource as well for people if and as they have different business ideas.
And just a little plug because, you know, hey, the entrepreneurship classes we have here at Boise State do use the business model canvas.
Right.
And we have courses within the college, and we also have courses aimed at STEM people as well. So for any of you who are not current entrepreneurial students, hey, check it out.
I'll give you another plug, Karen. My partners and I all went and took the Canvas class at the Venture College when we first got started with Ed Zimmer. It was great.
Way to go.
Yeah,
awesome.
It was really, really helpful. And it's something that I think really has helped us frame ideas. So
Excellent. Excellent. It's just kind of that, get it down on paper. Let's see if it has any legs whatsoever before we go forward. I don't know what we did in the years before. We had larger whiteboards and lots more stickies and colors on them. So here's a question, and I'm kind of doing, you know, I think I'm doing the fastball over the plate if we were to use a sports analogy. I'm Canadian. I could try and use a hockey analogy, but you know, I won't go there. I'll do the baseball one. It almost sounds like if I wanted to start a business, because there's so many things that I don't know, maybe I should just pick a not so good idea and, you know, blindly go check it out and figure out what I need to know before I do it with one of my good ideas, because I might not be able to carry this good idea all the way. What do you think?
I was laughing. I was thinking there's plenty of not so good ideas out there that are plenty successful.
Right.
Well, that's a good point too, right?
Not the best idea, but they're really good at branding or really good at marketing, and they're making it successful. So
you're never going to know everything. And if you wait to know everything to get started, you'll never get started.
Well, and it's kind of what Jesse was saying before. I mean, so much of the battle is just starting or taking a step forward. And it really isn't about the whole thing. It's about what's the next step. And so another approach might be to take an existing product or an existing service and say, you know what, I want to try to redefine that business, or I want to try to reinvent what this service in the community looks like. I mean, pick Time Worn dry cleaners. What's tomorrow's dry cleaner look like? What's tomorrow's laundromat going to look like? Again, there's a million things that sort of serve a community and have been staples. I think it's pretty sexy to reinvent something that is, it's kind of like what Cherie and her husband have done. It's like, generations of human beings have needed to deal with this problem. Why not rethink or reimagine? And like she said, their product isn't totally radically different than the ones that exist, but their approach to bring it to the market, their approach to bring it to life, and really the education and the engagement and the entire sort of mindset shift is what they've really focused on that's helped their business rocket fire. So I think if you're really excited about business, there's 101 ways to get into it. And I think there's not like a bad way. I think the Venture College is a great resource in the community. And I think for anybody that's engaged with BSU, I sit on, the advisory board of the board or whatever there. And I think it's so healthy to be in the space of people playing with ideas, and that even that environment, even if you don't have an idea, maybe you join Venture College and help support somebody else with their idea. But there's so much learning in that kind of space.
Yeah, I would love to chime in on that. I absolutely am going to piggyback on, the fact that you don't have to have a new idea. It doesn't have to be innovative. You can just redefine a category. You can take a different message. I see it all the time. Code Epoxy, one of my favorite brands out of Utah, I mean, they went into the outdoor space. That was a space that is really, if you look at Patagonia, it's really just florific, right? There's so many outdoor companies, and yet they're doing so well. And they went in with just a different idea to be able to give back, to have a social enterprise, to be able to alleviate poverty. And what I think really resonates about their brand, especially with the millennials and Gen Z consumers, is that these new customers, this new generation, doesn't want to just tack themselves onto big business. They want a brand that identifies with their values, identifies with the changes that they want to see in the world. And so you look at like Dollar Shave Club, or you look at other companies that are just redefining how people shop, bringing something new, and bringing in an aspect of doing good. So I'm going to do a plug for the B Corp movement, but B Corp social enterprise are amazing. It solves so many issues. Also, like I have people who come in all the time and say, hey, I've really wanted to do something with a philanthropic edge. My husband and I wanted to do that also. And you kind of think that the only route you can go is a nonprofit route. Well, that is rapidly changing to for-profit companies that have these charitable arms. And I think it's a better business model, because all my friends in the nonprofit sector, we have so many partners that we work with, and they say, I wanted to get into this nonprofit sector to do a lot of good, boots on the ground. And instead, I find myself fundraising all the time. And if you have a business that has the revenues that are already there, that's the beauty of what we do. I get to lead our impact team, and I get to write the big checks. It's so exciting. I can do what I'm best at as a marketer, as an entrepreneur, and still be able to fulfill that dream of being able to do good in the world with what I'm doing, because I'm just allocating some of our revenues. And I just see it being fueled by what consumers are looking for now. I see it being the way of the future, and I see it solving so many problems for the world. I think business is the answer to solve the world's problems right now. So I'm just going to put a plug in for social enterprise. What I've also found is that when you're talking about ideas, if you turn a kind of antiquated idea into a social enterprise and find a way to do good and have some new, trendy messaging that resonates, then I think that you're golden.
Excellent. So just in case anybody out there doesn't know, my knowledge of B Corps is about this big. And it's a state designation, right? So now I'm assuming, I've only been in Idaho for a couple of years. I'm assuming Idaho does have the ability where you can register as a B Corp.
So there's benefit corporations and there's B Corps, and that's where there's some confusion. So you can register as a benefit corporation, and that's kind of more of a tax model, where the B Corp is governed by B Lab. I believe they're located in California. I'll have to see, but it's a certification that's like a public transparent certification. And so we got B Corp certified last year, and we went through a rigorous process. You have a public score, and it measures your impact on people, planet, and profit. So it's the 3 Ps. It's a triple bottom line approach. And really your stakeholders aren't just aren't just, you know, shareholders. It's not just for profit. Your stakeholders include the community, includes your partners, includes employees, includes everybody that you impact with your product. And so it really takes a holistic view. It is a really incredible model. And like I said, I couldn't be a bigger proponent of it.
Awesome.
Well, kind of piggyback on what Cherie was saying. So to your comments there, the legal structure, you know, there are states that have a differentiated legal structure. So in addition to an LLC or, you know, an S Corp or C Corp, there is a benefit corporation. And there are only a number of states that have that. A couple years ago, there were 29 or 30 states. I'm sure there are more now, but Idaho will be one of the very last states to have that legal structure, is my personal imagination. But to Cherie's comments about the B Corp, anybody anywhere can be a B Corp and go through the certification process. It's not limited to where you are. You could still have an LLC, you can have an S Corp. So again, I think people get confused by the legal structure and that sort of certification, but I think it's important to understand that. I think the other thing that, you know, is interesting about it is just, you know, fundamentally, like how we think about capitalism and business, hopefully, is shifting. And I think the benefit corporation and the legal structure model and the adoption from others, you know, from more and more states is an indication of that. But, you know, you're starting to see it in other kind of public business things. I live in the world of sort of Fortune 50 now primarily. And, you know, there's business roundtable statement that was made, you know, when Larry Fink writes a letter in terms of how, you know, institutional finance is thinking about, you know, the companies they invest in and support. I mean, so in my mind, there's so many things that have to happen culturally to really shift. And we've got a long way to go. But I do believe that, you know, to some of the comments that have already been made, that the younger consumer has different expectations of business. And that is going to help hopefully continue the momentum, you know, moving in the right direction. But I agree with Cherie that, you know, business is a huge, you know, just engine that can really drive a lot of the transformation we want to see. And part of that is because we have independence to some extent in how and what type of impact and purpose we can shape. I personally think that any for-profit business that doesn't have a well-defined purpose and sort of, you know, clear mission and intention around that is going to have a hard time being sustainable in today's day and age. And so, you know, my hope is that a lot of these things are going to keep, you know, encouraging more to sort of, I guess, drive towards something beyond just the bottom line. I mean, you have to have, you know, the revenue to continue in business. That doesn't, you know, win you anything, but to build longevity with consumers and to build sustainable markets and channels, I think it's going to take more, or I hope so.
Excellent. Good. Thank you for the sidebar. This is, and I hope our attendees, I was hoping that during these talks we could talk kind of about the philosophical and the conceptual, and, you know, you have to have motivation to get going, but then we also need some really hard skills of make sure you understand how you can structure your company or how you can be certified in order to appeal more. And our attendees are, we certainly didn't do a check on the ages of everyone, but we're assuming that they're the slightly younger group. So you guys keep pushing hard, change all the businesses out there. Just as we're coming close to the top of the hour, we're going to go, if the three of you are okay, just for a few minutes past, but just in case we lose some attendees. Attendees, if anyone would like the book, and I'm going to either find the name of the book or Miranda is going to save me and hop on. And there we go. Get Hired, Grow, Lead, Live. If you would like the free copy of the book, you can come tomorrow to the management department office. Kylie Murphy right behind me. She actually literally is behind me. She'll be here on Wednesdays. You get the free book. You get a free sticker that says Women in Entrepreneurship. Thank you, Miranda. And before we leave, or I think perhaps right after we leave, we're going to have draws for some free gift cards. So we'll announce the gift cards, and when you come for your book and your sticker, there will be some of you who will also get a free gift card. If you come to all 5 sessions, you will be in for the big grand prize, the big grand prize is still yet to be determined, but we have a fairly large pocket of money to play with, so it's worth it. So keep hanging in there. Okay, that was and I'm not really a marketer, but I try and do this sale things. Oh, can you also talk about your internships, and if Jessie or Tara have anything like that? Because of course, especially in this time, and I feel for our students, undergrad, graduate, who are out there trying to get jobs in this time. So that would be an awesome way to end, would be how can these attendees get a chance at potentially working with you guys?
Well, yes. So we have just started an internship program in the summer, and here in the fall, we did just fill the positions, but we have determined that they're going to be continuous. And so after this next semester, we'll have more internships available. We love our interns. They're solving all sorts of problems for us. We are also have some projects going on with Boise Gap Year, I think with your department. So we have several. We have one in Impact. Yeah, I think we have 4 different projects that is taking place in your department. So that's another way you can get involved. I was going to give just a quick tip, for being hired, as part of a startup. I think it's a really great way to learn and to kind of get your toes wet for entrepreneurship. And that is come with some passion. We get, different resumes all day long. And if they don't have a cover letter where they're showing passion for that company, for the cause, for our purpose, that's what we're looking for, then, they're pushed aside really quickly. So we expect a good cover letter. We expect that when they come in, they talk about our company, they've researched about our company and know what who we are, what we're doing, because purpose is so central to who we are. We are all about changing lives every day. We have a very strong impact mission where we believe that every single one of our cups can literally break cycles of poverty and keep girls in school and keep women out of the poverty cycle. So we want to see that passion. And, I think it would be true also for Tara's company and for, any social enterprise. And I know that Jessie's company also has a very strong purpose for women and, just ideas, for women in the workplace. So I'll stop there.
Excellent. What are you looking for in your internships or interns? Are there specific skills, or I understand the passion and the knowledge, but are there skills, or is the passion kind of take away most?
Well, definitely skills. So we had an internship in government, in impact, and sales, one in supply chain. So we are looking for those technical skills. I don't want to give away our secrets, but we always have a technical interview. And then the second interview is just about whether they align with our core values and whether, they align with our culture. So we're asking very specific questions on, are they growth mindset? How are they going to handle difficult situations? Are they going to be open? Are they going to be humble? Are they going to be kind and respectful? That's the sort of things that we're looking for. And I would say that trumps skills usually.
Excellent. Excellent. Jessie or Tara, would you like to jump in?
Well, I was just going to say that, you mentioned a book that you have for your sort of student base. There's a couple other books. Jessie mentioned Big Magic, which is a great book. Another book that's fantastic for entrepreneurs, I think, is Peter Sim's book called Little Bets. I believe he was a professor out of Stanford, maybe somewhere out of California. Anyway, it's a great book, and it really speaks to this idea of, framing experiments and trying and piloting things and really defining your minimum viable product. And so that might be another resource just for people as they're sort of thinking in this direction.
Excellent. What was
I'm going to put a shameless plug out there, if I could. Just shameless plug.
And Jessie, the other book that you mentioned too. So go for the plug first.
The plug is we're actually hiring now. So we're hiring. It's not the most glamorous. It's not the sexiest of jobs, but we're hiring in our shipping department. And we have people in our marketing department that started in shipping and have really proven themselves. So if you are interested, send your resume over to hello@redaspen.com. So we are looking for people now.
Love shameless plugs, but love shameless plugs. I think all plugs are awesome. And the book that you mentioned earlier, Magic.
Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. Yeah.
Good. I think we're going to get the recommended reading list from our entrepreneurs. So we'll get that collection as we go. Good. We did have a message in the chat. if you can come by to pick up the book, the sticker, and maybe your gift card on Wednesday, there may be somebody around on Thursday. You can certainly try that. Or send us an email at WIE@boisestate.edu with your name and your address, and we'll get it sent out to you. So we're happy to get it to you one way or another. We will figure it out. And thank you, Miranda. So Miranda and Alessandra are both MBA students who are absolute rock stars at helping put this together, and they've been working in the background. So whenever I say something that sounds like I know what I'm talking about, on the whole, it's because I'm reading messages from those two. And they've done so much of the background work. I do want to thank Hal Eastman, who is our sponsor for this. He's the one who's allowed us to have the books, have this wonderful platform, get Zoom webinar, and hopefully, Tara, Jesse, and Cherie, we will get a wonderful thank you to you of some form or fashion as we get ourselves sorted on this. But without the three of you, there would be absolutely nothing. And your conversation has just been phenomenal. So really, really appreciate it. We're into the last few minutes. Do you have any final thoughts or words, or just as you're thinking about the session, anything you agreed or disagreed, or like, wait, I want to add to that because I think this is your editorialization time. I think I made up that word.
Well, I want to encourage all the people sort of participating. You know, most really successful entrepreneurs and people that are leading big, bold brands started from nowhere. And most people didn't have what it takes. They didn't have credentials. They didn't have fancy degrees. I mean, watch Bill Gates documentary. You know, he dropped out of college. You know, there's so many stories, and yet every story involves an enormous amount of perseverance and grit and just determination. So I think attitude and mindset and your sort of own imagination and what you believe about yourself is as important as everything else. I think you can have all the perfect education, all the right credentials, but you can still be a terrible business person. And so I think trusting your instincts and having this sort of courage to take steps to move your ideas forward. And again, if your first idea or your first concept isn't the right one, that doesn't mean there isn't a right one out there. So I just think, you know, like none of us here today are special or different. You know, we just, maybe we're sort of foolish enough to keep going. And really that's kind of what it takes. It takes almost a foolish level of ambition. Nobody believes in your idea at the beginning, or at least that's been my experience. And so you have to kind of be your biggest cheerleader, and you got to have a couple people around you telling you, like, you can do this, you can do this. So I would just encourage people to know, like, it really is possible that anybody can make an idea happen.
I love it. And I think another theme has been, if at first you don't succeed, try again. Like, okay, that idea gone, next. You know, let's keep going. Cherie?
Yeah, I'll add to that. The How I Built This podcast, I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar. That's one of my favorite podcasts. When you have a down day, listen to that and you hear these success stories from exactly what Tara just described. People who have come from, you know, nowhere, no experience, and created these amazing brands. And there are so many good examples of just powerhouse female entrepreneurs. And one plug that I really wanted to put in here at the end is the workplace and the landscape for females is still a little rough out there. We still have a very patriarchal based structure in society when it comes to work hours, workplaces, expectations. One thing that's been beautiful about what I've been able to create here at Saalt is I'm a mom of 5, and here I am trying to navigate that work-life balance. And I think that we've been able to do it really well because we've been able to create a lot of solutions. For instance, we have a full-time in-house preschool with 2 preschool teachers for all of our working parents, and includes our dads. And it's utilized a lot. We have like 8 kids in there at any given time. We have a really flexible PTO policy where we just say, we don't ask, we say, take the time you need as long as you're getting your work done. And that is a solution that's really needed for women, especially who usually carry more of the burden of childcare, and, you know, have those doctor's appointments and school appointments and so forth. And because of that, we've been able to attract really passionate, amazing talent that otherwise may not be in the workplace because they don't have those solutions provided to them. And so we were able to tap into this opportunity, this market that wasn't tapped into. And it's been incredible, and it's really sustained our business. So don't be afraid to create those solutions. You don't have to have everything be kind of how things are in the norm. Like, we need those solutions, especially for women, to solve the gender pay gap, to solve the issues that, are out there. So for the female entrepreneurs out there, be ready to be creative and change the game.
Excellent. Thank you. Jessie?
Yeah, I think, and man, it's hard to follow those two pieces of advice because they are so good. But I think my biggest piece of advice for anyone who's looking to start a business is don't give yourself an out to fail. I think that when you get started, it's really easy to say, I'm going to try, and that's going to be enough. Don't do that to yourself. Don't give yourself this big but that's going to let you out. Just set out with the intention of success. I think all too often I see people get started and they say, well, if it's, I don't want to be on my deathbed and having not tried, right? And to me, I'm like, well, don't you want to be on your deathbed saying, I'm glad that I didn't, or that I was successful? And I think there's a really big difference in that frame of mind. So don't set out to fail, set out to be successful, and don't give yourself the out, because there's always, we like to say, or at least I like to say, when one door closes, another door opens. And if that door closes, a window opens, and there's always the escape hatch. There's always a solution to any problem that you might have. It's just a matter of how hard you're willing to look to be creative and find that solution.
Awesome. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. The three of you have been absolutely fantastic. It's just been wonderful. And the mix of motivation and brass tacks, and I loved the shameless plugs. We are all about shameless plugs because we want you to succeed, and if we can, we want us to succeed, which is our students being able to work with fantastic companies. Speaking of shameless plugs, our next session is Wednesday, October 28th, and we're going to talk about knowing your market. So you've got your idea. We're going to take a bridge off of Tara's thoughts that she's already talked about, which is, okay, so who is our market going to be? All of you have talked about it. I must admit, as soon as Tara said things like hypothesis, I just kind of, that was the end of my ears. Thank you very, very much, all of you. Thank you, all of the attendees. Miranda and Alessandra for helping organize it. Of course, our wonderful what's that word? Marketing group here at Boise State that helped us put this together. Allison and Sam, and Hal Eastman and Gage for providing the funds. Okay, I think that's it. I should have had the credits rolling at the end. That would have been much better. Hopefully we'll see you again, the three of you, or hope we get to meet you in real life at some point in the future. But thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.